Okay, first slide shows our current and proposed organizational chart. So we currently have 2 vacant positions, although both are in the process of being filled. We have 1 new auditor starting this week on Thursday, and 1 starting August 1st. The other 2 vacant positions we propose to add in this budget. We're asking for funding for them for half a year, mostly to keep close to our target number, but also operationally filling the positions mid-year makes sense for us because we're starting a new approach that I'll talk about next slide, and that gives us some time to prepare. Okay, so our accomplishments this year, we've released 8 audits so far and hope to get 2 to 3 more out before the end of the year. So far, we've closed 59 open audit recommendations with 86% implemented. That's about 30% of the number open at the beginning of the year, updating what's on the slide. And we implemented a new risk assessment model. We're working with the audit committee to finalize a way to prioritize individual audit recommendations, which I have listed under the what's coming next year, but we've been working on it this year and hope to have it implemented in July. So also next year, we're adding a new, or we hope to add, if it's funded in this budget, a new quick response audit team. Those are the 2 new positions to respond more quickly to requests. A quick response audit is a single issue audit with a narrow focus that is designed to address a limited objective relatively quickly. We're still working out what relatively quickly will mean for us, but I'm hoping that means we can do something in 8 to 12 weeks as opposed to 6 months or longer. So over the past 5 years, City Council has passed legislation mandating 4 audits at certain intervals, and the body or members have requested an additional 10 audits. And we've worked to get most requests into our audit plan, but we haven't finished all of them. So not all requests would be amenable to a quick response audit approach, but some would. And this would also give us an opportunity to work with requester to prioritize whether it would be better to do something narrower and quicker or more in depth. Here's our proposed position count by fund. All of our positions are split funded. With the additional positions, we would move from a total of 18 funded positions to a total of 20 funded positions. Our vacancy rate was low in FY23, 1.4%. We had more turnover this year, so our average vacancy rate is higher, 5.6% in FY24. I'm using the budget office's template, so I'm not exactly sure what they meant by vacancy rate. We don't carry vacancies. When somebody leaves, we fill the position, but I calculated the number of months a position was vacant divided by the total number of months. So we are proposing a slight overall increase over this year's proposed budget, but it's a 4.1% increase in general fund, with 3.6% decreases in the enterprise fund. And this is because we're proposing shifting funds from contracted services to personnel, and they have a different allocation among funds. We allocate contracted services allocated in thirds, basically, third general fund, third watershed, third aviation funds, and it's 68% general fund for personnel. So shifting money from contract to personnel increases the fund to general fund, the amount in general fund. And that's it. Any questions?
Budget's virtually the same almost year to year. Good or bad?
Well, the amount's the same, but we've shifted how we're using it and what we're doing.
How often do you have to bring in someone from the outside for a really, large, complicated job?
Very infrequently. Right now, our contract is really the Mullen and Jenkins doing the financial audit, although we will have to contract for the actuarial audit again. We are behind on that. We are waiting because the cleanup job on the census data was recently completed, and it seemed pointless to do it again until that was complete.
Okay. Roughly, what's the annual number of audits your board chooses versus audits that are suggested by members of this body? Or is that just up and down?
Well, we throw everything into the mix, and then the audit committee approves the plan. So let's see, we have the 4 mandated audits, with one is annual, one is every other year, one is every 5 years, and then one is every 3 years, although, as I said, I've delayed that one. And then we've had 10 requests that we've worked in, so that's about 2 a year. We try to do 12 a year, so council's requesting a third of them.
Well, and I want to thank you for being as accommodating as you are, for taking those on. I know they do not go to the bottom of your pile. Get on them as quickly as practicable. So I appreciate that. Is there a difference in normal elapsed time between an audit your board assigns to you versus one that comes via a council request?
No. We make assignments based on, who's available, sort of the skills of, the team.
Well, I mean, your output is prodigious. I have kept all of them, and it now takes up an entire drawer in my huge file case, which I will leave behind for whoever follows me. They're invaluable. So speaking of past audits, how often do you go back, check up on, and update your scorecard regarding compliance and, promised? I mean, everyone inevitably says, oh, we're going to do this next month or by December.
Our follow-up, so in Mike Jones, I should have introduced my team, I'm sorry. Stephanie Jackson, the Deputy City Auditor. Mike Jones, the Performance Audit Manager, he leads our follow-up effort for open recommendations, and that is going a lot better since we implemented our mission mark system, and so it's an ongoing effort.
I think that's
he's on the monthly, really.
I think that's a really valuable way to spend your time, is to go back, because the response is always lemony fresh. We thank the audit team, vow to honor and obey, and then, well, to be perfectly blunt, council owes you, and I'm looking at your metrics, council owes you a few things from the last audit of us, which is going to take some time, given the complexity involved, to ask Ms. Kempson Wright. But have you all been having any dialogue at all, or is that something we need to? You need to turn on your mic, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
I send out monthly reminders as well as particulars to business owners as well as department heads as far as any open recommendations and updates that they can make to keep abreast of any progress that's being made, as well as give the departments credit for any progress that they're making on open recommendations. So in addition to that, just providing any kind of training or awareness about Mission Mark and how to use it, that goes on a continuous basis.
So it is not uncommon among our peer agencies. So our recommendation agreement rate hovers around 95%, while the implementation rate is, of those implemented, is, I reported 86%. So it is definitely not uncommon for the implementation rate to be lower than the agreement rate. We have some aged recommendations that are sort of orphaned, that haven't, I don't remember now. We always have around 200 open recommendations, because while we're closing them at a fairly good clip, we're adding to them every year. And there's a batch that are pretty old that departments at the time said they would implement within 6 months, and now they're 6 years old. And we were planning to close, but departments say, oh, well, they might implement them, so we've left them open.
6%. Would I be right in guessing that that's trending up over the years? I mean, that seems pleasantly high.
Well, those are, yeah, that is high. If we close the ones that are 6 years old and have had no action, that would drop. So, and that's part of the reason I think the administration or departments have chosen not to close them. So the 86 is probably high compared to our peers. I think it's not uncommon for implementation rates to be, more in the 70s compared to the agreement rates in the 90s. But the audit committee is interested in going back and auditing some areas that we have audited before, maybe 10 years ago.
Is there a way for you to benchmark these outcomes with other comparably populated cities, their audit teams?
There is a benchmarking report that the Association of Local Government Auditors puts out, and we compared some of our outcomes with them. I can provide that in our next quarterly report or sooner.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. So I noticed the last maybe couple of years, we might not hear from you for a couple of months. We might get 2, every now and then 3 at one meeting. I wonder, is it possible that you can kind of spread those out?
We can try. The part of that is the audit committee meets 6 times a year, so they have they'll have 2 or 3 on their committee meeting, and they approve them, and that's how we get them out. We're adjusting to the ELM schedule. So.
That is all I have. Mr. Winston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ms. Noble, thank you and your team for your audits. I find them to be very thorough, and quite frankly, there've been some that have helped us do our job a lot better, and so I appreciate the effort from your team. I did have one question. You brought up the fact that you have been having some turnover, and so just trying to rationalize the thought between kind of reducing the contracted services funds, and I know you're trying to add some new positions, but just want to kind of gauge your confidence in being able to fill some of those positions versus kind of relying on contracted services like you have in the past.
We haven't had any trouble filling positions. Sometimes keeping the positions filled. We've been able to keep positions filled for several years. I mean, the turnover comes in fits and starts. So we'll go for a couple of years and have no turnover, and then we'll have a batch of turnover. So it's a little hard for me to predict.
Got it. Okay. Makes sense to me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank you. I'll conclude by throwing my annual bouquet. I don't know how prior councils did what they're supposed to do without having the audit function. So, rival of your predecessor just provided an invaluable service that y'all have kept up, and that we greatly Thank you. Say our thanks to everyone. All right, thank you. That concludes audit. So we have a roughly 40-minute break, I think, until lunch, which probably will arrive around noon, and then we will resume at 1 o'clock with Department of City Planning. Till then, we are in recess.